Hey guys, Jason here. This is a Ask Me Anything episode, and we have two questions from listeners like you, and they're really about marriage and not marriage. When one person is into marriage and the other person doesn't want to make that commitment. So I think you're going to like this one. Check it out. Okay, welcome back to the Smart Couple podcast and Smart Couple show, where we talk about long-term relationship specifically. And when you understand how to do long-term relationship well, it's kind of like the master skill. You can do other relationships easier. That's just my experience anyway. And I see that in other people. If I can, the real test is, can I do conflict with the person I'm closest to, i.e. my husband, my wife, my partner, life partner, soulmate. If you can work your shit out with that person, you can work it out with almost anybody. And if they're not a willing partner, of course, then you get to work it out inside your own heart, which is extremely valuable skill, that you don't need another person to work it out. Now, that's for like friends and family and people that will never, ever change, coworkers. And when you have a long-term partner, guys, you got to both be involved in working it out. I get so many questions about, well, yeah, but what if my partner won't work on it with me? It's not going to happen. So I will repeat myself every single time about that, right? It's not going to happen for you. Okay, here's our first question. There's two questions today that are very similar, so I'm gonna go through them both, all right? So the first question is from Casey, and I'm not sure where Casey's from. Venus? I don't know. Anyway, Casey says, "Hey Jason, after discovering your podcast, I haven't been able to stop binge listening. Thanks for sharing. Cool. My boyfriend and I have been dating 2+ years and have been unable to move forward and feel secure in our relationship because I believe in marriage and he does not." This is a big one. That said, he does believe in committed monogamous partnership, just not the institution. I love and want to be with him, but it feels like we'll forever be in this eternal impasse. Any suggestions on how to get over this hurdle? Or is it simply time to move on? Really good question, Casey. I like this one. Yeah, I've got loads of personal stories I could share on this. So I just want to speak about the institution for a moment. Okay, the institution of marriage is kind of a sham in terms of how it's presented and sold to you, that you marry someone, you get all these legal benefits, tax benefits, and you have this big wedding and you spend a shitload of money that you don't have, and everybody parties and has a good time, and all the family drama kind of fades away for a few hours, and then a year or two later you sober up and realize who you're with, and it's like a living nightmare, especially if you have no tools. So we're not sold that. The fantasy is like happily ever after. It's great. Everything's so amazing. There's all these benefits, but people have zero idea what they're getting into. Now, maybe you do. You guys have an idea now that you're getting educated here, how rigorous this path is, but most people don't know what they're getting into. So I don't, and then when you look around like I used to and my wife used to, when we were not married and didn't believe in marriage, it didn't look very promising. I didn't see many people in my life that inspired me that were married. So I just want to validate your guys' feelings that marriage is an institution, and marriage, as you look around and see it, I'm not that impressed either. So I'm with you. And then my challenge to him is it's going to be pretty hard to feel secure in a nervous system kind of way over many years if your partner wants the package of marriage and that level of commitment. Like, we're married, I'm married. If your partner wants that and you don't, it's going to be hard for your partner to let down. And then if you're like, yeah, I'm cool here, I don't need the institution, I don't need the certificate, so to speak, it's going to be hard to get to a place of nervous system letdown and ease of like, we've landed in this relationship. Wow, this feels so good, even though it's challenging, right? So I'm with you that it's going to be pretty hard here. And it is an impasse. And so two things have to happen. One of two things have to happen. You come over to his side and be like, cool, I'm going to let go of the institution of marriage. That's not something I'm going to work with myself and see if I can let that go and just be life partners and be totally committed, monogamous. And I don't need the little badge of marriage. I don't need the ceremony. I don't need any of that. If you can get there, then you might both be able to kind of go over towards his place. The other choice, of course, is that he comes over to your side. He does the inner work required to get on board. Like, okay, marriage, like, what am I rebelling against? What am I reacting against? Like, do I really want to give the institution of marriage this much power over me to determine what I choose to do with my life, right? Whenever we're rebelling against something, we give it power. So, that one would be pretty straightforward to work through, I think, for him, if he wanted to. But he might be attached to blaming the institution of marriage. That's the big problem. I doubt it's the institution of marriage. My guess is he has some other fears that are hidden here and that would be worth exploring. That would be what I would be challenging him on. I'd be like, bro, let's not make it about marriage, okay? Like, what are you scared of? What are you really afraid of here? Like, what's the big deal? And that's where I would be going with him. So, yes, and this can be a deal breaker. All right. All right. That's, I may come back to this one, but I want to answer a second question from Kristen that's very similar. And let's see if we can build upon what we just talked about. So Kristen says, my boyfriend and I have been together for 4.5 years. We both have lost a spouse and have 5 kids between us. A year ago, we got engaged and were living together for 5 months. He became overwhelmed with the demands of a large blended family and left, taking his 2 children with him. After therapy and 9 painful months of hurting one another, we are giving it an earnest try and restarting the relationship. Cool. What is lacking in the relationship for me is the commitment. We are no longer engaged and the plans to live together. I took one of your courses and understand my part. I understand that the relationship has to meet my needs or I need to leave. He's not willing to commit to me through marriage and will only live in 2 houses as the blended family is too hard of a situation for him. Is it true that the only way this relationship can survive is if he moves forward towards meeting my needs of commitment and living together at least part of the time? Nice. Okay, this is Kristen, I appreciate the work you've done on yourself to get to this moment where you're like, all right, to ask me the question, is it true that the only way this relationship can work really is if he moves toward meeting my needs of commitment? At least living together at least part of the time? My answer is yes, that is true. Sure, there could be a rare exception, but in general, that's true. If you have what I call a non-negotiable need, which I teach and talk about in my courses, you stand in that firmly. An example is marriage. This is non-negotiable. I need this, and I will not settle for just being boyfriend, girlfriend, life partners without marriage. I will not. That could be, for some of us, a non-negotiable need, for example. Monogamy is another non-negotiable need. So she's taken one of my courses, so she's clear on, I've got a non-negotiable here. Yeah, he's not coming around to do this with you. So the one way to be in a relationship with him is to betray yourself, leave this part of yourself behind, which will lead to a resentment, and just be like, okay, it's no big deal, because I love you, and I'll settle for this. I'm not into settling. Settling leads to misery and resentments. So, no, stand your ground and be willing to leave the relationship. And yeah, blended families, 4.5 years, siblings, your kids are like buddies now, perhaps, and there's dynamics there. It can be a lot to extract yourself from a family like this. And if he's already got his arm like this, nope, I'm not willing to move in. Nope, I'm not willing to get married. Nope, I'm not willing to be engaged. His hand is up and like this, and you can't, I like to respect people's boundaries and be like, all right, cool, got it. Rather than, try to push the boundary. Just stand gently and powerfully in what's true for you. Be like, this is where I am, and this is not negotiable for me. So it looks like this relationship is going to end. And I'm willing to end this relationship, to go after what I want, which is monogamous marriage, living together, blending our families, the whole 9 yards. That's what I need in my life, if that's you, Kristen. So, yeah. All right. So this question, to sum it all up here, guys, this question is really about when one person wants marriage and the other one doesn't. What the hell do you do? Well, like I just said, it's not going to work. Now, there is the case where people make it work, but it's like a big kink in the hose. It just is not going to be fulfilling. You can't reach what I call the secure home base, which is one of the 4 pillars of a really amazing partnership, is you got to have the fuel to go the distance together. Fuel requires both people burning clean fuel together by working on themselves, constantly cleaning their stuff out, facing their fears, facing their blocks, and then you have a really powerful rocket fuel to go on your amazing journey together. So, yeah, when we can't get on board with these kind of big, huge life decisions, typically it just doesn't work. All right. Thanks to listeners like you, we get great questions here at the Smart Couple Show and podcast. And we're here every Wednesday morning live on Facebook and Instagram. You can go to facebook.com/Jason Gaddis fan page if you want to catch us live any Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Okay. Also on Instagram, it's instagram.com/Jason Gaddis. Okay. Great to have you here. And here's a quick action step. See if you can be honest with yourself that you have a non-negotiable need, and then see if you can start to share that with someone you care about. And it might awaken them into action towards meeting that need with you. It's okay to ask for what you need in a relationship, and yes, your needs can get met, believe it or not. If you want email reminders and about the podcast, I send an email every Wednesday about the podcast. And usually I include a short little story of some kind, a link to the podcast episode on my site, which has also links to iTunes and Stitcher. So if you're lazy or not, you're like need reminders, then just subscribe to my email list, jasongaddis.com. Okay. And then you'll get the marriage success map, which is a really simple 1-page PDF on what type of marriage can rock it out over time and the other 2 that will not make it. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.